Economic policy is just one place where populists and the establishment wing of the party part ways. Entitlements, education, domestic surveillance, and foreign policy all have the potential to divide the party. But supporters of a more populist vision say issues like same-sex marriage and the legalization of marijuana show the country as a whole is shifting towards a more liberal position. The challenge for Clinton may be to determine how to fuse the two sides into a platform that appeals to both wings of the Democratic Party. One big question, however, as potential Democratic presidential candidate, former Montana Governor Brian Schweitzer points out, is whether big money donors will back a progressive vision. He told the Washington Post this, quote, "I think the party increasingly is responding to the special interests they need to get elected. The military-industrial complex, big energy, pharmaceutical companies, banks." Well, this article, by the way, was co-written by Washington Post chief correspondent Dan Balls, who is with me today. Also with me is Adam Green. He's co-founder of the Progressive Change Campaign Committee, and Jim Kessler, senior vice president for policy with the Democratic think tank Third Way. They're representing two wings of the Democratic Party. But Dan set up this this debate. You know, the Republican Party divide we all know a lot about. Party out of power that gets into the forefront. This is something that's been papered over by Obama and Clinton, but where do you see this potentially clashing?
Well, I think that the biggest areas are, A, on foreign policy, because we know there are divides within the Democratic coalition about many of the policies that the president has carried out, the drone policy, the surveillance policy. But I think that the real issue that is going to be of debate is over economics. Nothing is working well. The president's policies aren't working. Republican policies haven't worked. We're in a time of perhaps historic change, and we don't quite understand what the economy is doing. And I think both wings of the Democratic Party are grappling with this, but they may have different directions they want to go.
You were really nodding your head on this, Adam. So I take it you agree that it's on economic policy where we're going to see more of this?
Yeah, economics is the game, and the Elizabeth Warren wing of the Democratic Party is clearly ascendant. You know, fighting for a little guy in our economy, sticking up for hardworking people against very powerful interests, whether it's Wall Street, the oil companies, the drug companies. Even if you live in red state America or purple state America, you're not rooting for Wall Street to get away with murder. So I would actually say that the two wings are actually not co-equal in terms of size. That in terms of actual voters, the overwhelming majority of Republican, Democrat, independent voters want someone like Elizabeth Warren to stick up for Wall Street. It's only in D.C. that we're having kind of this conversation.
Well, and this gets at this sort of anti-big that we're in. You know, there was this, Jim, there was this movement when you had Occupy Wall Street, and there was core elements of the Tea Party and Occupy Wall that frankly agreed.
Oh, sure.
Right, because of this sort of fear of big, whether it's big government or big power on Wall Street.
Right, and I think most Americans don't love the Tea Party, and most Americans don't like Occupy Wall Street either. And I want to take issue on one thing you said. I thought the President's State of the Union was anything but populist. I thought he moved into a growth and opportunity message there, and I think that the President has kind of moved actually towards the center of the Democratic Party.
You think he's more of a center-left guy?
I do. I think he's there. Look. Things that work in Massachusetts and New York don't necessarily work electorally or economically in the rest of the country. The problem with populism is it is pessimistic. It's us versus them. It puts the middle class into a victim state. And the solutions, in our view, are too puny to really help the middle class. There are huge structural changes going on in the economy, and we need, you know, big ideas and new ideas for the new economy. I'm not sure these populist ideas are the right ones.
Well, Adam, look, there's going to be pressure being put on Hillary Clinton from both. I mean, she's got the Bill Clinton memory of the 90s, which was very much a pro-business Democratic Party. Barack Obama doing a little bit of bridging, I would say, trying to bridge the two wings of the party together, probably more so than Bill Clinton did, but until late in his presidency. How do you pressure Hillary Clinton to be more to the left of her husband?
Well, so we'll be organizing in states like New Hampshire and Iowa to make sure that every Democratic candidate, including Hillary Clinton, is asked whether they agree with Elizabeth Warren on key economic populism issues like expanding Social Security benefits, not cutting it, more Wall Street reform. But I have to say one thing. Let me just finish.
One of the worst ideas out there.
So, not according to voters. So we've done the polling. In red states like Texas and Kentucky, expanding Social Security benefits is popular by 3 to 1, 2 to 1.
Of course.
Purple states
Everybody
like,
that's
wants
the thing
free.
about populism.
Everybody wants free money.
I mean, that is
right?
what's wrong with politics, both on the left and the right. It's like, of course, if you give away free stuff, that would give a raise to every single senior citizen, whether you've made $100,000 a year or $20,000 a year or $200,000 a year, whether you put more money into the trust fund or not.
Why is popular bad? Why is populist? Why is popular a bad thing?
Popular is bad if it leads the country down the drain, and
it's not inherently bad. It's not inherently bad.
No, popular is good if it does good things for the country, but that is a terrible idea.
Dan, obviously we're getting a taste of what you were trying to write about here. Yes. But this is sort of, and I guess my question is, where do you see Hillary Clinton? You know, it was interesting. Remember, she was at the Bill de Blasio swearing in.
Right.
Yes, he's somebody that managed her campaign, so there's a personal connection there. But she is trying to, she's going to have to, in an odd way, particularly if she gets challenged, a serious challenge in the Democratic primary, she's almost got to distance herself from the Bill Clinton economics of the 90s a little bit.
You know, it was interesting. One of the people we quoted in the piece was Bill Galston, who was domestic policy advisor for President Clinton. It came out of the DLC wing, but had worked for Walter Mondale in 1984. He said what I thought was an interesting thing, which is she's going to have to come up with something new. And as he put it, he knows two things. One is it can't be Clintonomics from the 1990s, but he also said it can't be pure populism. And I think the challenge for her, because I think she is a little bit to the left of her husband on economic issues. We saw some of that in the 08 campaign, particularly when she was losing. I mean, she was a very full-throated kind of, you know, I'm for working families candidate and an effective candidate. I think she's to the left of her husband on trade, but she has a lot of thinking to do. There's nothing that's sitting on the shelf right now that she can pull off.
I'm going to ask both of you, is this issue of trade, do you think, going to pop this year, or do you think it's going to be tabled for 2014?
Well, my fear is that it's going to be tabled for 2014. I do think that there's no path to middle-class success and American success unless we get a far bigger slice of the Asia market. U.S. market share of Asia fell more than any other country between 2000 and 2010. That's the future. We're last in trade as a percentage of our exports. There's a bad taste in a lot of people's mouth on NAFTA, but
you go to Ohio, you go to Wisconsin. I've been in these folks, and these folks who say the economy's recovering now, they think NAFTA is the reason why every mid-sized city in Ohio is decimated.
But you know, the thing is that you know, if we don't write the rules in Asia, China writes the rules in Asia. We don't have virtually any trade deals in Asia, and we're just getting killed there, so we need something.
Adam, do you think it's going to be tabled? And are you like him? Do you actually don't want it tabled? Do you think this is a healthy debate the party needs to have?
It's a healthy debate, and the question is, do we prioritize corporate interest or regular people? And of course, I come down on the side of regular people.
Me too.
But let me tell you, one of the most formative political years of my life was sitting about this far away from Dan Pfeiffer, in the White House Communications Director in South Dakota, 2002, a year that most Democrats lost their re-elections, and we were working for a senator named Tim Johnson in a red state. And the reason we won that year was because culturally conservative farmers and ranchers voted for our senator because he was against NAFTA and because he was sticking up for Social Security and running on economic populism issues. My big lesson that year was, especially in red states, Democrats need to embrace bold economic populism if they want to win. And if they muddy down that message, then the only thing left is cultural divide issues, and we lose. So the biggest path to political success for Democrats is economic populism.
Well, this is going to be an interesting debate to follow. It wasn't quite USA-Russia with the fight, you know, with the hockey fight, but it was good stuff there. Adam Green, Jim Kessler, thank you. Dan, thank you for bringing this debate together.
Thank you for having us.
Bringing people together, sort of.
That's our goal.
Right. Anyway, this will to be continued.